It's time for the Douglas Coleman Show. Smooth and Savvy is joined by some of the hottest talent in the entertainment industry, from musicians to authors and all those in between. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here he is, Mr. Smooth and Savvy himself, Douglas Coleman.
Howdy, howdy, ho. Hey, 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 hee, 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 ha, 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 ha. Welcome to the Douglas Coleman Show. It's me, Douglas Coleman. Happy New Year to everybody. 2017 is here. Wow. This is our first show for 2017, and with any luck, we'll have a few more this year. Hopefully one a week. Anyways, I hope everybody had a good New Year. I just hung around. I didn't do anything. I didn't go out. I don't like going out on New Year. Back in the days when I used to like to partake in drinking, I used to call New Year's Eve amateur night because it was the night that the amateur drinkers would go out and they'd get drunk and they'd get into trouble. It wasn't a great night, for us professional drinkers. But I don't do that anymore. But it just brought back some memories of that. Anyways, Tom Baldinger is here today. And Tom is a filmmaker, writer, and director. He runs a production company called 624 Productions. And they have a new movie out. It's called Who's Jenna? It's a romantic comedy. It's very funny. I really enjoyed it. It stars Bill Sorvino, Tracy Birdsdall, Joseph D'Onofrio, and Gary Pastore. And it's a great film, and I think everybody should go and see it. Before we get to Tom, we have more music. We've got 3 songs today from MusicX-Ray submissions, and I want to thank everybody who's been submitting on MusicX-Ray. We're getting a lot of great songs, and we've got 3 of them today to play for you. The first one is called Overload by Steve Parisien, followed by X-Rated Movie Star by Kenneth E. Tucker Sr., and finally Wake Up by mightydougyoung. So we will have the music first, and then the interview with Tom Baldinger.
invitation. Let's start making up. Love can bridge the gap in our generations. We got to shake it up. Cause there's a lot of work needing our attention. It's time to take it up. Reaching out and sharing is hate prevention. No one should ever hunger or be without a home, or be privileged cause they're younger, or abandoned when they're old. People wake up. We can lead the way to a better tomorrow. Let's start by making up. Love can drive away all the pain and sorrow. Breaking up, baby. We can fix the pieces that are broken. Oh, baby, shake it up, shake it up. Love can say the things that are unspoken. See those walls come tumbling down. People getting back together. Fires of hate are being put out now, and we can make it even better. Oh, it's time to wake up. There's still a lot of hope for this generation. It's time to shake it up, take it up. Why not make love the new sensation? Oh, people wake up. Open up your hearts to your sisters and brothers. Let's start by making up. We can learn to live in peace with each other. Love power is more power than you have ever seen. And that love power is inside you and me. Rainbow voices singing out, and neighbors looking out for each other. Reaching out to lend a helping hand, regardless of race or color. Oh, it's time to wake up. There's a lot of work needing our attention. Let's take it up. Reaching out and sharing is hate prevention. Let's start by making up. We can fix the pieces that are broken. We need to shake it up. Love can say the things that are unspoken. Shake it up and take a look around. Shake it up and wake it up.
You're listening to Mr. Smooth and Savvy right here on The Douglas Coleman Show. We'll be right back after these commercial messages.
Acclaimed author of Garden, Jane Yates brings you the first book in a new trilogy, Octopus Pirate, a story of a foundling who has unusual talents, such as the ability to communicate with octopuses. As a baby, he was washed up on an island off the Scottish mainland. An eccentric former nun who lives alone with cats brings him up. He joins a circus and narrowly escapes plots against him. Flees to Cornwall, builds a replica pirate ship that's also an airship to travel back in time to fight real pirates. Get your copy today from Amazon, only 99 cents.
DJC Music and DJC Productions are pleased to announce a brand new website. We have started a listing website for radio show hosts as well as potential show guests. This is a meeting site where hosts and guests can come together. Show hosts can list their show and types of guests they're interested in booking. Potential guests can list their talents, bio, accomplishments, or anything they feel makes them an interesting radio show guest. There are no recurrent payments, only a one-time $5 listing fee. Your listing will stay up until you decide to cancel. Previous guests of The Douglas Coleman Show are welcome to submit their guest listing free of charge. Go to radiohostsandguests.com. That's radiohostsandguests.com.
Hi there, this is Stuart Epps from the UK, record producer, engineer. You might have heard of me. I've worked with artists from Elton John to Led Zeppelin to Bad Company, Twisted Sister, Robbie Williams, Oasis, many, many great bands and artists in the past and the present and hopefully in the future. But you can work with me as well. You know, all you got to do is get in touch with me on eppsmusicproductions.com. That's EPPsproductionsmusic.com. And I can help you with your productions and with your recordings. A lot of people do home recordings now, which you can only take so far. Maybe they need a bit of professional help. So get in touch with me and we can sort it out. And thanks for Douglas Coleman for giving me this spot. Thanks a lot. Cheers, bye.
And now...
Hey, Rocky, watch me pull a rabbit out of my hat. See? Nothing up my sleeve. Presto! Wrong hat.
Now here's something we hope you'll really like.
Okay, please welcome my guest, Tom Baldinger. Hi, Tom. How are you?
Hey, Douglas. How are you doing?
Doing very well, thank you. Thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it. I watched the movie that you made, and it's really very funny. I want to get to that in a second, but I just wanted to tell you that I did actually watch the film and really enjoyed it. There were some very funny moments in it, and it was a good story. You are a director and writer and a filmmaker. Tell us just a little bit about your background, and then we'll talk about the film.
Great. Well, thanks. Thanks a lot for watching it, and thanks for having me on the show. So I've been a film buff theater guy for a long time. I did theater throughout, grade school, high school, and college. After I graduated college, I did a little some acting classes after that, and realized that I wasn't a very good actor, but I understood how stories were made and how stories are put together. And I thought of, why don't I write and direct instead of, being in front of the camera up on the stage. And so I wrote a number of different plays and produced them off Broadway here in the city. And then the last play that I wrote turned into a short film, because that last play that I put on here in the city, we did sort of a local tour of it, renting out a couple community theaters in New Jersey, and putting that play up. And it led to me meeting my director of photography, who not only worked on my first short film, which is on Amazon Prime now, but on this feature film of Who's Jenna, which is a feature. The short film is called Two Sides of Love. It just kind of spawned from there. And I've always loved movies. And after making the short film, myself and my crew, of 624 Productions, which is made up of Jeff Sesselberg, Mike Rapoli, Brian Millard, myself, the executive producer, and the person who pulls all of our strings and runs the show is my wife. And so my wife Kelly, and we just kind of sat down and said, let's do a feature. And I had the script, Who's Jenna, written originally as a short film as well. And then when we read through it, we got some feedbacks from some people in the industry that said, you could probably make this into a feature. And I went back, rewrote it, and you've seen the end product. So it's been an incredible journey, and it's going to continue to be an incredible journey because we have more to come. Why did you feel that you weren't a good actor? What made you decide that wasn't going to be your road? It was I didn't think that I could make that commitment as an actor to the role. To any roles that I played, I didn't think that I could toe the line of reality and playing reality. So I found that I was thinking too much, and that I was it just didn't come natural to me. But what I did find come natural to me was when I was directing, plays in college. I directed a play in college, and that just felt more natural. And it actually works to my advantage because, because I took acting, lessons and all that, did all the acting thing for so long, leading up to becoming a director, it allows me to really to communicate very well, with my cast, and really, understand where they're coming from. But, I just realized that I just didn't have, sometimes a great coach isn't a great player, and a great player isn't sometimes a great coach. And so I realized that I was better on telling people how to capture the picture and let the real professionals become, the characters.
Well, I was just going to say maybe you're better at giving direction than you were at taking it.
Well, my wife would say that.
Well, I mean, that's the mark of, one of the things required to be a good actor is that you have to be able to take direction and kind of understand what the director wants and give it to him. I studied acting years ago, and I was all ready to go that route, but I'd always had a love for music, and I ended up hooking up with a band and then quit the school, blah, blah, blah. So I get, the whole concept of taking acting lessons and, like what you said about making a commitment to it. And it really is a commitment. You can't do it half-heartedly. The acting coaches will be the first ones to pull you out, to call you out on that, rather.
100%.
Just so people understand the difference, what is the difference between a short film and a feature? Is it simply the length of the film?
Generally speaking, yes. A short film, I believe a feature is anything over 60 minutes. It's considered a feature film. Anything under an hour is a short film. So it's really the length, yeah.
Okay, but it has no bearing on the production quality, or you could have a short film with all kinds of production value, and it's just, if it's less than an hour, it's a short film.
For sure. I mean, there's some wonderful short films out there that the quality of some short films are not only the sound or the visual quality, but even the performances and the writing of short films are light years ahead of some feature films, that are big studio feature films that are made. So short films are a great way for, especially for new filmmakers to really, cut their teeth. To really, understand the nuance of telling a story, a beginning, a middle, and an end. So it's a great way to cut your teeth and to really, show your chops to the industry of what you can do, and what you could do with a feature film. And some, not necessarily does it translate either. Sometimes some great short film makers don't make good, feature filmmakers. And the same goes for, for great feature film directors and filmmakers might not make good short films. So, that's the difference between the two is really, it's just the length.
I guess with a short film, if you're going to try to tell a complete story, you really got to be, I'd say, either very good at editing or very good at shooting a lot of content in a small amount of time to really get your story across. If you've got an hour and a half or 2 hours to tell a story, you can have scenes that perhaps drag a little bit.
100%. It can be very difficult. I mean, you got to think, short film is it's like a half-hour episode on a TV show, but without the to be continued or the option of, moving forward. You know what I mean?
Right. No part two. So it's got to be, bang, 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 and you tell your story. One of the films that just came to my head thinking about something that was way too long, I thought. You remember the film The Deer Hunter?
Oh, for sure. Uh-huh.
Okay, do you remember the wedding scene before they all go to Vietnam? The wedding scene was like 28 minutes long. And I kept thinking, why in the world do they have this wedding scene? Because there wasn't a significance to it. It made the movie 3 hours long or whatever it was. And all I kept thinking was, if they just chopped that wedding scene down to about 12 minutes, it would have, I didn't get why that was so long. But my point is is that in a film like that, you can take all that time that you probably can't do in a short film. So in one sense, I think people who make short films really have, I suppose, a better concept of economy than somebody who's got 2 hours or 2.5 hours to make a film.
That's a great way of putting it. But there is also to your point, there is also the fear of with a feature film where the story drags and or the filmmaker or the storyteller and or the storyteller is repeating themselves, and they're kind of stuck in that no man's land before they get to the climax and then the resolution. So that's the danger in some feature films is it takes too long to get there.
Right. Now, you said you originally wrote Who's Jenna as a short film, correct?
That's correct.
So how did you stretch it out, for lack of a better word? How did you stretch it out to make it a feature? What did you do to, expand it?
No, that's a great question. So when I wrote the short film, we held a private reading of it here in New York City at the Producers Club in Midtown, and I invited some close friends of mine, some in the industry and some just your laymen, who would give me honest opinions on the script. In fact, we actually did a reading of 3 short films. One of them were mine, 2 of them were mine, and another one was somebody else's. And the feedback that I got was people that I received that evening were, wow, you got a really nice story here, but there's so much more to it. There's more to these characters. You can really expand upon. And I always felt that way, but I kind of held back because I was afraid, to be honest with you. I was afraid to write a full feature. I didn't think that that's sort of that insecurity a little bit was getting in the way. And to get that sort of feedback from my people who I, hold close to my heart, to tell me that, yes, you can do more with this. There's more to do with it. It was sort of just like, unlocking the door, and it just let me really expand upon what was already in my head. So making it into a feature it wasn't that big of a hurdle. It wasn't as if I had to go back and find ways to create these characters and create different situations. They were already there. I just was sort of holding on to that storyline because I wasn't sure if it was going to work or not.
Now, when you write a script, do you kind of have in your head, like you can see the scenes playing out as you're writing it? Or do you write it strictly as a story, like a novel or a short story, and then chop it up into scenes? I guess they call it storyboarding, right? Where you do one section at a time. When you write it, how does it work in your head?
So, if anybody looked at me on the train, I think they'd think I was crazy because I kind of play the scenes out in my head, and I find myself talking to myself a lot, playing the characters. And sometimes I find myself talking out loud instead of it being in my head, and I go, oh my God, if anybody's looking at me right now, they're going to think I'm absolutely crazy.
That's funny.
And I work in New York City, and my commute is quite long from my home to come in here into New York. And so a lot of my time I spend, during that time thinking of storyboarding in my head as well as on paper. But the first thing that I do, when writing a script is I write the end first. I have the end of the story first. I always get that done first. And the reason is I kind of put that up on a board and I say, okay, that's where I want to get to. Now, how do I get characters A, B, C, and D? How do I get them to that end? And so that's the fun part, and the creative part is, I already know how the story is going to end, where I want to get to it, but how do I get there? What is character A? Does a character A make a left turn, and does character B follow A? And then, as I'm writing each scene, I see the scenes in my head as if I were filming it at that same time. In fact, I just finished another script with Lenny Benito, who is in Who's Jenna. Lenny's also on Kevin Can Wait. He's got a co-starring role in that, and him and I put our heads together on a story. And one of the things that comes natural to me is the writing dialogue. I can hear how people talk. For some reason, it comes natural to me to write dialogue. I think the part that sometimes I guess you could say struggle with is that I put too much on paper, which actors love. But as a writer, it's sometimes, it's like you put so much on the paper that, an hour and 20 movie, turns into a 3-hour film on paper. But that works in the benefit of a filmmaker and for the actors, because I like to give as much as I can to whether it be a director or in this case to the actors, so that they have a background. And then what we did that during Jenna was that there was a lot more on the page, and we found ourselves saying, we don't need to say this. We can cut this. We can do it in a look. We can get to point B without going through A1, A2, and A3. Let's get from A to B a little bit quicker. But it gave the actor a lot more background to work with in the lines that they were saying. So very long answer there. I apologize.
No, that's okay. That's good. We like long answers on radio shows. Makes a better presentation. One of the funny characters, speaking of characters in the film, and I was curious if originally you had wrote it, that the boss, was he originally going to? Yeah, was he originally going to be a drag queen, or was he? Or did that come later?
No, that was always in there. It was always in the film. We throughout the film. And by the way, that part of Joe Barsha is played beautifully by Gary Pastor. Gary is a good friend of mine. We became good friends over, before the film, and even better friends during making this feature. And he really embraced this role tremendously. But when I originally wrote it, there were, in the film, there are some Easter eggs throughout the film that lead to that happening, to his character having that kind of that double life.
It was interesting, the people in the film, actually, because Joe D'Onofrio, I think, is probably the most recognizable, because he was in Goodfellas, and he was in A Bronx Tale as a younger actor, but he still looks pretty much the same. But a lot of those other guys who, although maybe not recognizable, were still sort of cut from that. I'm trying to think of a nice word to use, but it was the Italian-American sort of New York guys, right? That
100%. The ongoing joke was it's a movie filled with Italian-American guys directed by an Irish guy.
I was going to use the word Guidos, because that's actually Johnny Greenlaw used that as I had him on a few weeks ago for Mommy's Box, and Bill Sorvino
great film.
Yeah, and Joe D'Onofrio were in that as well. And we were commenting in the interview about the scene in the Cadillac dealer, where it just was very reminiscent of Goodfellas. You had a little homage to Goodfellas in your movie too, with the slicing of the garlic. Was that your idea to do that?
No, you know what? I would love to take credit for that, but it was not my idea. It was the idea of the crew. I believe it was Jeff Sesselberg, who's my DP, and Brian Millard, my assistant director. I can't remember which one said it first, or if they said it at the same time. Being that Bill Sorvino's uncle, Paul Sorvino, was in Goodfellas, slicing the onion, slicing the garlic, excuse me. And so we needed an opening shot, and the two of them, they came up with it, and I think even Brad Reeb, who was our cameraman, it was the three of them who came up with it, and I remember our art director Tristan pulling out his phone, and we were looking at the phone, watching that specific scene, and trying to get as authentic as possible without going overboard.
Did Bill have a good sense of humor about that?
Oh, Bill had a fantastic sense of humor, and it was great. And we, watching it, when we were editing it, we were putting our hands up in the air like as if we hit a field goal. It was great. We were like, we got it. But it's funny you say the whole, the mobster feel of it. A lot of these guys played parts that were not mobster related. And the only scene in the movie where you kind of get that feel is, seeing that garlic, him cutting the garlic, which is just sort of a wink to the Goodfellas movies.
Right.
But the one scene in the movie where it sort of has that, that Goodfellas Italian mobster kind of feel is in the restaurant scene with Gary, Lenny, Vic DiBenedetto, and Mike Toda and Bill Servino when they're out to dinner, when Bill's character's out to dinner with all of his new clients. The rest of the movie, we try to get away from that stereotype of Italian Americans and let them play something outside of what they're used to being casted.
Well, that was a very funny scene at the restaurant, particularly like the sausage.
Yeah.
That was quite good. Yeah, when I interviewed Bill, I told him about seeing his uncle, actually. I think his uncle has a good sense of humor about that scene, because he was on Martha Stewart at one point, Paul Sorvino, and they were cooking something. I don't know what they were making, but he did that same thing. He said, okay, see if anybody remembers this. And he started doing the garlic with the razor blade. So, and I was just cracking up. I thought it was hysterical. So when I saw it again in your film, I thought, oh God, here it is again. But it was great. I think it was funny. I hope a lot of people catch that. I hope they get that.
Yeah, it's we had 2 screenings of the movie. We've only had 2 screenings of the movie, and we did that specifically for a purpose, and I can get to that later. But the 2 red carpet screenings that we had of the movie, there were quite a few people in the audience who laughed out loud because they knew exactly what we were doing. And some people went over their head because, I can't imagine anybody who hasn't seen Goodfellas, but I'm sure there are a few people out there. But a majority of the people, they smiled or snickered and kind of got the wink, kind of the elbow, bump a little bit. So they enjoyed it.
So the film is out, right? It's already out?
No, actually, it's so we held a screening of the movie in Asbury Park, New Jersey, in Monmouth County, which is where I grew up in Middletown, Red Bank, which is 2 towns over from Asbury Park. But we held the screening at the House of Independence in May, and we had over 300 people show up. It was actually standing room only. It was a wonderful night.
Wow.
It was a great turnout. And then we went back and remastered some of the sound from the film and added, some very, very minor things, cut some minor things, little haircuts. And then we had another screening of it where we were invited to screen the film at the Golden Door International Film Festival in Jersey City this past September. And again, we had a great turnout. It was a red carpet event. It was a Saturday evening event, and we had close to 300 people show up again. Some of the people were repeats, which was wonderful. And the purpose of the reason we did that was we wanted to gain some media reviews. We wanted to get some either positive or negative, get some reviews of the movie, which we've gotten, I think, about a little over half a dozen media reviews on the film, and all of them been very, very positive, which now has led us to, we have a firm, a producer's rep firm who has actually picked up the film, and they are actually pitching it to a bunch of different networks, as I speak. And so we're just sitting back right now waiting to see if a network such as, Amazon or Hulu or IFC Channel or Netflix, HBO, or whoever it may be that they're pitching it to, pick the film up and we get a nice distribution from it. If not, then we might go down the avenue of some of the major film festivals. But we feel pretty confident that we're going to get a nice distribution deal for this film.
Let me ask you about Amazon and about Hulu and stuff. You have to audition for them, for lack of a better term.
So what? Yeah, you basically, we have a, just like actors have agents who represent them and put their information in front of the casting directors and the production companies. We have a representative agency that is out there pushing our film and going to the networks, and they put the movie in front of them, and they view it. These networks and distributors will watch the movie. They'll watch our electronic press kit or look at our electronic press kit, watch the film, take a look at the trailer, and then they'll make a decision if it's something that they feel it's good enough to distribute, or they pass on it. And so that's how the process works. And that's where we are in the process right now.
Do they provide any kind of promotion for the film, or do they simply just put it up on their websites?
It depends. It really depends on the distributor, on the network, and on the deal that you get, on the offer that you get. Some of them will just, slap it on their website, and then it's up to you to self-market it. There are others that will promote it. So it's really, it's a case-by-case basis. So we'll see. I mean, it's nerve-wracking because we just began this process 2 weeks ago, and I was told that it could take up to 8 weeks before we hear anything. So, it's nerve-wracking because we had a good, strong train going along there, and then we had to kind of, I would love to be doing more screenings and showing the film more, but we myself and my team, we all decided that this was the best option for us. And we were very happy that this rep company, which is a reputable producers rep firm out in Los Angeles, picked up the film and loved it, and it already jumped on board to start marketing the movie for us to the distributors. So, we were fortunate to get that.
So, assuming you get picked up by Amazon or Hulu, then is it viable that you're going to get your money back on the film through that kind of outlet? Or is there other?
Yeah, that's the idea. I have investors who I have to pay back. People who invested in this film who are not, they're not holding a gun to my head or anything like that. But
I don't know. Some of those guys.
What's that?
No, I just was going to make a joke. I said some of those guys in that film look like they could have held a gun to your head, but no, go ahead.
No, my investors are people who believe in me and believed in the project. And so, again, like, they're not holding a gun to my head, but as a business person, I want to do the right thing and get the best offer, the best distribution deal so that we can make our money back to pay back our investors. And then it allows us to get some street credit, so that we can make our next, 2 or 3 films that we have sitting in the pipeline right now. So, it's all, as I hate to say this term, but it is all a process. And it seems to be going in the right direction so far. And we'll just, keep our fingers crossed and continue to look at it at the positive light at the end of the tunnel.
Well, indie film has sort of sprouted wings probably, along with the internet. And it seems like there's a whole lot more of it going on. I mean, back in the 70s and 80s, you really had to have a lot of money to make a film because everything was done on film. It's gotten quite a bit cheaper to make a film of really good quality thanks to digital. But the mystery seems to be, how do you get people to notice it? And that's very true with musicians now who can create beautiful albums at home that they couldn't do before. You put it out on the internet and you hope somebody sees it. So the mystery to me has always been, okay, you've got this great film, now what do you do with it? How do you get people to see it? How do you make your money? Because I know DVD sales people aren't buying DVDs anymore. Not like it used to be. So
that's very true.
If you get a good distribution deal, then you're looking at what? People like video on demand?
Correct. I mean, the whole industry, the film industry, has completely changed, right? To your point. The movie theaters are hurting, DVD sales are hurting because everybody is watching what I'm holding in my hand right now. They're watching on their mobile device, whether it be their iPhone, their iPad, or iSomething, whatever it may be. And so it has changed the dynamics of how films get distributed. There's so many channels out there. I mean, I was home I was home last night and just turning through, you flip through, there's up to 300 channels before you hit HBO,
right.
Before you hit the paid subscription channels. So there's, for a filmmaker like myself, it's exciting because there are so many outlets, but then at the same time, there are so many outlets that it can get lost in the shuffle, right? So, you want to make sure that, you're relevant, that you make a product that's commercial, that's very, a good product that can be commercialized, right? And it's something that people recognize, and also really comes down to who you have in the film. If you have a big name in the film, if you have an Alec Baldwin or an Al Pacino or Robert De Niro or a Tom Cruise in the movie, that helps ticket sales. That helps the distributors be able to put the film out there. But there's also the flip side of that there's some great movies that have been made that didn't have real big names in it, but they were great stories. So, there's no perfect formula. There's no perfect method to how movies are distributed, how people get their money back. A lot of it is luck. I just was reading, I was just reading today about a film distribution company. I was looking at some of the movies that they distributed, and one of them had a very famous actor, and I don't want to name names because I could work with these people in the future, but, it had a very well-named actor who was in a very famous sitcom TV show, and I looked at the movie, and I read the reviews, and the movie was panned. It was destroyed. The critics hated the movie, and it did terribly. But yet, this filmmaker was able to get these very big named actors on this film and make this movie. So, somewhere along the lines, someone believed in this project. So, it kind of makes you scratch, as a audience member, you scratch your head and you go, how in the world did something like that get made? Okay, they had Tom Cruise in it. They had, Jack Nicholson in it. They had, Chevy Chase or whatever. They had these big, or used to be big names or big name actors in it, and it's a terrible movie. And then there's the flip side, like I said, where there are some great stories out there that don't have the big names and sometimes get lost in the shuffle. But I think the video on demand, the streaming, there's so many channels, there's so much ability to put content out there that, myself as a filmmaker, it's exciting to be able to have a venue to go to, whereas, 30 years ago you didn't, or 40 years ago you didn't. But it's funny, Alec Baldwin was on the Howard Stern show a couple of years ago, and he said something that really, I was in the middle of, we were just about to begin filming, Jenna, and I just happened to listen to this interview, and he said that he felt that the independent film industry is now the way movies were made in the 60s and the 70s, where it was more about the story and the content and the characters, and it wasn't about the big budget blow up and the CGI and, lightsabers and superheroes, which, by the way, I love to go see those movies. But, independent film industry is now what movies used to be like, where, again, it was about the dialogue, it was about the characters and the story. And so my hope is that the independent films, that people continue to make great independent films, and that maybe, people like myself and others get recognized more than we have in the past couple of years. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. It makes perfect sense. And I agree with you.
Or am I just completely rambling and just completely lost your audience at this point?
No. It was very enticing and very engaging, because it's true. The indie films that I've seen that have come through the show, every single one of them has been great. And I made a comment to one of the filmmakers that the only difference that I could tell between a film that cost, and I think she said that it was like less than $100,000 for this particular film, and something like James Bond that would be $200 million, is you just didn't have the 50-car chase crash scenes. You didn't have buildings blowing up. You didn't have the character going from Haiti to the Middle East to the Far East to all these places. The story was concentrated in like one town. But the actual story itself and the way it was shot and the sound quality and the picture quality, absolutely you couldn't tell the difference if that was made at Columbia or in this guy's house. You just couldn't tell. And I think that's where digital has really brought the market to people like you who can make a film, or anybody who wants to make a film. It's possible now to make a film of equal quality to the major studios. They don't have a lock on it anymore. Like you said, the big blockbuster superhero Marvel comic type stuff, no indie guy's going to try to tackle that. You imagine an indie guy trying to do a Batman? I mean, forget it. It would be laughable. But to tell a romantic comedy, to tell a drama, to tell, a human story, a love story, it can be done. and it can be done just as well as they can do it for a fraction of the cost. So I absolutely agree with you. Having a big name is good for marketing, certainly, but it doesn't necessarily equate to a great movie. Like you said, the one with the big stars and the critics hated it. It was probably a lousy story. The one that also comes to mind now is Ishtar, had Dustin Hoffman. That's about the top of the heap for an actor. The movie got horrible reviews, and I've seen the movie, and there were a couple of funny scenes in it. But other than that, I thought the movie was awful. And, so even Dustin Hoffman couldn't save a bad script. It's
unfortunate when that happens.
Yeah, I know, because it makes him look bad. But I'm sure he was well paid for it. So, you probably have to shrug it off.
No, I was just going to say it can be sometimes frustrating for filmmakers, independent filmmakers, where, it's our blood, sweat, and tears that are making these films. And we scratch our head and go, how did that movie get made? That's always my question to myself. And I try to say, find a way of, right, how do we get to that level? How does 624 Productions, get to the level of having, a star named actor in an independent film with a good product behind it? And that it's not, the movie just didn't get made because it had Dustin Hoffman in it, or it had, Tom Cruise in it. It got made because, they believed in it. And, there are movies that are like that. I mean, there are some big name actors who will do independent films because they believe in the project. They believe in the script, and they're still out there. But I'm looking forward to those opportunities coming in the future.
Well, the one that I particularly like, who I think is a fairly big name actor, is Paul Dano. And he picks, he takes a lot of those kind of indie projects, and like the films that I've seen him in have all been really good. He's gotten a little bit bigger as time's gone on, but the ones that come to mind are like Little Miss Sunshine, which was a fantastic movie. It was a great story. It had all kinds of depth and characters. And then, he did the other one. What was it called? The Extra Man was really good. He was in that movie Taking Woodstock, which I thought was a great film. And those had a kind of an indie sort of feel about them. I don't know exactly who made them and if they were indie or not, but they had that element. They had that ingredient of, a really good story and, not so many lightsabers. So I absolutely, going back to what we started talking about 20 minutes ago, I absolutely agree that indie is really what was happening in the 40s and 50s in Hollywood. Hollywood has just gone, well, and you know what? You can make the same parallel to music. Music that the indie musicians, which is more of my feature on this show, that they're making at home is like the stuff that was in the 60s and 70s, really heartfelt, real music. The stuff that the major labels are pumping out now is more computer created than human created.
100%.
Yeah. And I frankly, there isn't anything on the major labels that I really enjoy, because I think the more the computer takes over the creation of the music, the more the soul is gone from the music. And I think that the big budget Hollywood production in the films have also, I just watched, a couple of weeks ago, I just watched Spectra, which was the last James Bond film with Daniel Craig. Okay, great effects, great camera work, great all of that. I think he probably had 3 pages worth of dialogue for the whole film. Yes. Yeah. No.
I was going to say, when you said James Bond, I was going to say that to you. Like, if you go back, if you look at some of these movies, these big budget movies, and if you pull the script, there's maybe, 30 pages of dialogue, and the rest of it is action, which is not bad, but, it goes against, but it's the complete opposite of what, telling a story. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, it's losing its soul for production. That's really what's happened. you know, you even go back to the old James Bonds with Sean Connery. And I mean, Sean had a lot more character than any of the other James Bond. Roger Moore was pretty good, but he took a twist on the character and really camped him up, you know, like real tongue in cheek. But like the ones after him, you know, they were just so dry and just so cold and sterile, and there was no, I don't know. And again, I don't think it was their fault. I think that just was what Hollywood, the more they could do with computers, the less they had to do with people.
Yeah, that's sort of where the industry is going. But I mean, I think there is, I mean, some of these big studios have launched their own independent, you know, film arms. You know what I mean? You know, you have Fox Searchlight and others who are, you know, seeing that there's still a venue for a good story and good characters and good dialogue. But unfortunately, you know, that's not what sells in the big movie theaters, you know. But audiences aren't stupid. And people want to be entertained, and they want to kind of get away from their day-to-day lifestyle. And that's why the Netflix, the Amazon, the Hulus are geniuses, because they realize that people don't want to go to the movie theaters and spend, you know, $40 for an evening with them, you know, themselves, their significant other, and maybe one or two kids, and maybe it's even more than that, right? It's like $60, where they can just, you know, get it on Netflix for $2.99, and watch a good movie at home.
You know, I don't think I've gone to the theater to see a movie since VCRs came out back in the 80s. Because once I could pop the tape in and not have to go out and stay home and watch the thing, I thought, yahoo, this is great. And now, I mean, God, people have 80-inch screens and surround sound systems at home. I don't see why they would want to go out at all, but that's just me.
No, it's wonderful. I mean, it's wonderful that the streaming has you know made it possible for filmmakers to get their stuff out there.
Well, I agree with you. Okay, so getting back to your film. So your film is not out available as of yet, right?
No, not yet, sir.
Not
yet. But hopefully soon. Hopefully you'll hear an announcement of our distribution deal very soon.
Okay, great. Well, listen, we are out of time, but I want to thank you for coming on and talking about filmmaking and about your film. It was very enlightening. Thank you for being a guest on the show. Best of luck with Who's Jenna. I hope the film does very well. I hope it gets some good distribution.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate you having us on.
Well, that's about all the time we've got for the show today. I want to thank my special guests, Tom Baldinger and Steve Parisien, Kenneth E. Tucker Sr., and Mighty Doug Young for the music. This is Douglas Coleman saying goodbye.
To the